60 and 60 and single, 60 and happy, 60 and whatever it is that you want to talk about when you're over 60.
You still need me, will you still feed me when I'm 64? Woo!
So thank you so much, Debbie Thompson, for being in our podcast, 60
Sure.
and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. I am a health coach who specializes in working specifically with women over 40 who have either struggled with food and weight and their body for decades.
Are there any women who haven't?
Yeah, I know, sadly. Or some though, it's interesting. The more I do this work, I'm fascinated how many women say they were fine until they hit 40. Their body starts going rogue. They don't know how to take care of it, and they start struggling then. So either end of that spectrum, and I personally had both of those struggles. So I help them to use just basically a very personalized, healthy habits routine that helps them let go of those struggles. And I also work with the mindset, mindfulness part of it, so that the the motivational part is also a non-issue.
So when obviously this is something that you went through, and then you yourself decided to do this. When was that? When was your aha moment?
Yeah. Well, first I had eating disorders in high school and college. And I had a very unlikely aha moment actually. Right after college, I was watching a TV movie back in the days when they still had TV movies. Movie of the week, remember those?
Yeah.
We had to wait till once a week to watch a movie, apparently. So I was watching, and it was about a bulimic woman. And I remember I had no idea I had anything like bulimia because I was never making myself vomit. I had what is now known as exercise bulimia, but there was no name for that back then. But watching her, I was like, every time she was about to binge, I had the same, and purge, I had the same like physical feeling, like I knew what she was going to do and everything. And it was such an aha moment that I actually had a thing. Like before that, I thought my problem was I just couldn't stay on a diet, right? And so I realized this was a thing. And for some people, that wouldn't be enough to heal necessarily. But for me, it was such a light bulb that I was like, oh, okay. So I guess if I just don't do that anymore, I'll be okay. And so I just stopped
doing have to do that.
Crazy. But anyhow, so I was fine until that was like my early 20s until 40. And I had 3 babies and I never had issues. And then I hit 40. So then I had this other end of the spectrum there where all of a sudden my body was changing a lot. And I gained 25 pounds. And I really am very much against body shaming and worrying too much about the scale. However, I just felt very uncomfortable. My knees started hurting. I got gout. My digestion was awful. This was all happening at the same time. And I also really didn't want to spend money on constantly buying bigger clothes. Like I really would rather spend my money on something else. So I didn't like that part of it. And it did sort of trigger a little bit of it triggered yo-yo dieting. I wasn't binging or doing any kind of purging, but I was back into sort of a disordered eating habit with a lot of yo-yo dieting. And I finally was putting breadcrumbs together by the time I hit about 47.
Not only is it yo-yo dieting, after 40, when we were younger and you're like, I have to lose 10 pounds. Okay, I can lose 10 pounds. Like, okay, give me 2 weeks, I can do it. After 40, that shit stops. Man,
right.
Like I can maybe lose a pound in a month,
right.
Just brutal. And it just, the metabolism, everything changes. So I think, I hate to tell the younger women this because it will change. What was so crazy for me was that I could, I'm from Northeastern Ohio. I'm a good I could drink any guy under the table. Oh no, after 40, 2 glasses of wine, you're smashed.
Yes.
I remember going out and my mom would only order like one drink and I'd be with my dad, like knocking back scotches or whatever. And I'd be like, why aren't you drinking? She's like, nope, sorry. Now
All
I
I
know
can
why.
Yep.
That your metabolism just really slows down. I don't know that it slows
Crazy.
down, but it just changes.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So you have to learn to relearn how to eat. So do you do mostly through motivation? Well, you said it's mostly changing your mindset, or
It's like both the sort of that two-pronged thing that some people say I know what to do, but I can't make myself do it. And then, so for those people, sometimes they know what to do. However, a lot of the I know what to do is still diety. And I don't, dieting is actually one of the leading causes of weight gain. And dieting is a cause of eating problems and body image problems. So, either way, whether they sort of do know what healthier eating would be, but they can't make themselves do it, with that, I just help them with much more of a gradual incremental steps approach to even creating the healthy image or eating, because most of these women are extremely busy. They tend to be like high achieving women that I work with a lot. So they're very busy, a lot of single mothers. And so they don't, even if they sort of know the healthy eating types of things, they don't feel like they have the time, energy, or effort to interest to deal with that. So it's both. For some people, they need more of the formula, but everybody needs that mindset part.
So if I gave you a magic wand and you could solve one of the biggest problems for your clients, what would be the one thing that you would want to solve? Is it their mindset? Is it their snacking? Is it what's the one thing, if you could change the one thing, like dink, with a magic wand, what would it be?
Yeah, I'm thinking like 2 or a tie, but I would honestly
What's
say the first thing I think that I had just said is stop dieting. Like, honestly, it almost starts there, because I think a lot of that hindrance to I don't know what to do, or I think I do, but I can't make myself do it, comes from this idea that we have to do these extreme, crazy, unsustainable, time consuming things that just, it's not true.
Mhm. Well, I mean, I think you and I are probably in the same age range. It's like I remember being on the, where you just like eat oranges one day, or
Yes,
or
grapefruit diet.
the grapefruit diet, right? That's what it was. It was the grapefruit diet, or then there was the South Beach diet, then there was the Atkins diet, and then there was all those things, and it was never ever spoken of to be consistent with nutrition or anything like
Right.
that. I feel like that's just such a modern idea.
Yes.
I mean, I see here that you said you ran a half marathon. That's awesome. That's
Yes.
awesome.
Yep.
Where was it?
That was in Nashville. So that was very fun.
Hmm.
Yeah.
What brought you to do a half marathon? What is that, 13 miles?
Yeah. Well, I was a gym class phobic all in my, high school years. So I'm like the last person that thought she would do anything like that. But I started whenever I stopped dieting, I got to like 47. I started just putting these little pieces together rather than trying anything extreme. And, one baby step after another, I started to feel really, really good. So again, it wasn't just about losing weight. And I gained a lot of strength and energy and cardiovascular health and everything. And I had never run more than a block in my life. And suddenly my walks, I was taking regular walks. I'd walk my dog. And suddenly I remember one day feeling like walking wasn't going to be fast enough. And I heard myself say in my head, run. And I was like, who are you talking to?
Who said that? Who said that?
That certainly could not be me. But I just started
Oh,
running.
wait a minute. I just got chills because it's like Pittsburgh is
Yeah.
up and down and up and down, and because Akron is got the hills as well, but you guys really have the hills.
Yes.
Oh my God. Well, I'm like, oh my God, she's running in Pittsburgh. No way.
Yeah, this is not, Florida or, a lot of the country that's flat.
Columbus. I lived in Columbus
Hmm.
too. Flat, flat,
Hmm.
flat. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. So hills, mm,
Yes.
that's a challenge.
Yeah, and little by little by little, I just, increased it very slowly. I mean, from the time that day where I said run, that was 2011,
Mhm.
and I didn't run the half marathon till 15.
Oh
So
wow.
that's how slowly. I mean, I just started like I once I could run a mile, I thought I had arrived and that was all I needed to do. And then little by little, my husband was like, why don't you try? He's a runner. So he's like, why don't you try a 5K? And like, yeah. And so he helped me.
Yeah.
And again, even the model right now, I'm trying to train. After I did the half marathon, I actually got injured, not right after that, but like a year later. And because I was getting old, I was in my early 50s at this point. And so this again, like your body keeps changing. And again, this is why it's not
And
about
shit
dieting.
happens. You walk across the room and that's what happened. It's like, how did you do that? I
Yes,
did it by walking across the room. It's
exactly.
like,
So you have to develop this relationship with yourself and your body, and then that keeps helping you as you age, no matter what it throws at you.
mhm.
So yeah, so right now I'm doing couch to 5K to try to do at least just 5Ks every once in a while. And
Mm,
I would say like the couch to 5K is almost the perfect parallel of like what I teach women is this very slow, gradual, almost you don't notice what you're
mhm.
doing because it's so gradual and so like ninja, how you're like just changing stuff without making it, so much suffering.
Right. So one of the things I like to ask is like, what is the scariest thing you've ever done
Ooh,
or
that's a
place? Yeah. What's the
great question.
scariest? Yeah, I know. What's something that was really, and you can interpret that however you want. It's
Yeah,
like,
I was gonna say, recently it probably would be going on Facebook Live because you would know
oh,
as an entrepreneur, like the first time you do that, you're like, really? I'm gonna like look like such an idiot. But other than that, I think more like on the big scale because that's just, that's
yeah,
social anxiety.
yeah.
On a bigger scale, the scariest thing was I lived in Germany for 3 years
Oh, where?
back in my early 40s, near Wiesbaden.
Yeah, I lived in Dusseldorf for 15 years. Yeah,
Crazy. We
yeah,
have parallel
yeah.
geography.
Sprichst du Deutsch? Kannst
Ein
du Deutsch
bisschen.
sprechen? Oh, okay.
Yeah, 3 years we didn't learn a
Oh,
lot.
I was 15, so it was a while. Yeah, yeah.
And why were you there?
I met a guy at Ohio State,
Okay.
and I was in the fashion industry, and in the late 80s, everything
Mhm.
crashed in where I
Mhm.
was. So it was kind of like, want to go? And I was like, yeah, why not? Let's go. So I went,
Wow.
and I ended up staying for a very long time. I never thought I
You
would come back.
did.
Yeah, I never thought I would come back, but my parents,
Yeah.
I'm an only child. So,
Okay.
you get to a point where you're like, I think I should go home. So I came back in 2005 and I've been
Mhm.
here in Florida, which I never thought I would do. So now I guess I'm a Floridian.
Yeah.
don't know, I guess for real. I've been here 15 years as well now, right? Or
Wow.
15, 16 years now. So it goes
Well,
fast.
it does. We moved there in '04. We were there from '04 to '07. So we were
Oh, okay.
getting there when you were leaving.
Yeah, when I was leaving. So what were you there for work or?
So yeah, my first husband, my ex-husband, he worked for the army. So we
Oh,
were
okay.
there through part of the army
And that's
community.
why
Yeah.
Wiesbaden is
Yeah.
where the yeah,
Hmm.
the
And that's why
area
it was more time limited.
right, the area that I was in was, mostly British soldiers and stuff.
Oh,
So
okay.
Krefeld, Mönchengladbach,
Aw,
all that was more British.
that's
So, yeah,
awesome.
that's awesome, that's awesome. So we both so, Appleboy, the apple wine, it's called
Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Appleboy, and, Handkäse mit Musik, which is cheese with
Hmm.
onions, yeah.
Forgot what the music, but I knew what
Oh,
Handkäse
music is
meant,
from
but
eating the onions. It's like beans. Yeah.
funny. Is that what that comes from? How
Yeah,
funny.
yeah, exactly, exactly. So,
Yeah,
well,
we actually lived in Eltvilla. which is a little tiny village near. Do you know Rudesheim, which is
Bruce,
down the
sure.
Rhine? Yeah.
Sure, Bruce.
So Altvilla is another, it's sort of like Rudesheim with the
Yeah.
vineyards between Wiesbaden and Rudesheim, but smaller
Yeah.
and not touristy. So anyway, yes, we lived in the Rheingau. So we were around
Oh,
a lot of
tons
wine.
of wine, tons of
Mhm.
wine. Yeah, that's really nice.
Yeah.
It really does change your
Mhm.
attitude about the world when you go live somewhere else.
Yeah.
How do you think that's affected you?
Oh gosh, that is another great question. I mean, I personally, the first thing that was coming to me, like I said, I was terrified to do this. I didn't think I just he had to go there. He had to go there. So, I remember when he told me and I hung up the phone and started crying because I just was so scared. I mean, it's so crazy to me now because I think, what the heck was the big deal? Like, what did I, but this is, to be honest, and some of your listeners, I mean, I think that probably was one of the first things that showed me the potential, a growth mindset. I had no words for that. Like, I wouldn't have known that then, but I think that was like the first little crack in girlfriend. Like, if you can do this, what else can you do?
Yes.
And you
Yeah.
start to just like do, and then so the next thing I know, I'm doing half marathons and changing careers, and all kinds of stuff is going on. But so yeah, I think that was a very, very, very big turning point.
When something like that changes your perspective and you go somewhere and you find out people are just people. Everybody just wants to come home from work and have dinner.
Absolutely.
Doesn't matter where you're at.
Yeah.
That's all anyone ever wants is just a little
Mhm.
bit of peace and quiet. Let's have something to eat and relax.
Yep.
And I think once you get out of your bubble and you go somewhere else and you see that that's all anyone's doing, it just is a sort of a great equalizer, and it
Mhm.
makes you kind of consider things a little bit differently.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. And to see how other cultures, especially when you do live there, more traveling does that anyway, but when you
Yeah, but
live there and you're not,
it's different. Yeah.
to see just, yeah, how a government, like what I could understand of it,
Mhm.
how their government worked differently and their school systems and, going to the different countries. And yeah, you just getting out of your American bubble and your American point of view is very, very important.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. So one of the other questions, so I asked you the scary question already. That probably was a pretty scary moment for you, right? Um, my father was a magician, so everything I have around me is a lot of magic things. I even named the house the Magic House. So, what would you consider your magic moment in your life?
Ooh,
I'm sure
wow.
there's many, but there was one that popped into your head immediately. What was it?
Well, the first, but I was trying to think of how to say it is going into coaching. I think because before that, yeah, I mean, the idea that I would ever be an entrepreneur, I was a social worker for over 20 years
Mhm.
and I worked. So not only that, but I also had worked for nonprofits. So the idea that I would like go into business or like go off by myself and create this, that is very magical. It's very, as you would know too, like that creativity part of it, that's magic.
Mhm. What so yes, that's so if the name of the podcast is 60 and, so how would you finish that sentence? 60 and
Mm,
what? Or 50 and what? I don't know.
yeah,
Or
still
40,
growing.
still growing, still growing.
Mhm.
That's good. That's good. So it's really you've had, so at what point did you have your transition in your head where you went from, was it that point when you went to Germany, or was it the point when you lost weight, or was it, what was the point where you transformed yourself to say all things are possible?
Mm. Um, I think all things are possible. I would say when I did decide to go into business for myself.
Hmm. And how
Yeah,
long?
that felt that was, I mean, I made that decision in 2016
Okay.
and I went to B school in
Oh,
2017. Yep.
Mhm.
And so that all of a sudden felt like, well, this is just way outside of, anything I ever would have thought. So who
So
knows?
so growing up or even now, who are some of your role models?
Hmm. Well, I would say my mom was a role model for sure. And wow, I'm trying to think of other role models. I had a lot of women. I think I was very blessed in social work, in a lot of ways, but also, it is a very female
Yeah.
dominated. I hate to use dominated, but
Yeah.
mostly. So I was privileged and benefited from working with a lot of women and a lot of wonderful female role models all through my career that way.
Social
Um,
work always seems to me like a giant topic. Was there a specific I'm starting to think in German
Specialty.
again. I have to switch the words.
Aw.
A specific theme that you worked in or a specific area?
Yeah, I worked with adoption and foster
Yeah.
care.
Oh,
Mhm.
wow. Wow.
Yes. Yeah,
How
so I
how
had
do, how do you deal with that when you see
mm,
kids coming from hard
oh,
situations,
yeah.
and how do you cope with that?
I burnt out is
Okay.
how I didn't cope. And nobody had a word for burnout either back then.
Yeah.
I burnt out a couple times. So I remember being in my 20s and burning out. And then it would always be like, and then I started having babies and I would like work part-time or be off for a little while and I would get like a reprieve and then I would go back to it because my heart was
Yeah.
so in it,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
mission of it and everything about it. So I grew up with my parents took foster kids.
Oh,
So
okay.
this was way deeper than just,
So do
so
you have a way of setting up a barrier so that you don't have, or is it just like, no, sorry, I'm there.
and they didn't teach us that either back then. But
Yeah.
then I had a big gap. I didn't work in that field at all for, I'm just saying off the top of my head, it was probably like about 8 years, 6 to 8 years. And so I had a big gap and I went back to grad school at 40, from 40 to 43. I was in grad school. I went on distance learning online from Germany, which was very old or very new at that
At that
point to be
time,
able to
yeah,
do that.
sure.
I was going to do Kane in Pittsburgh from Germany, which is so cool. But anyhow, so we get back to Pittsburgh, and I tried to get out of social work into something else with my grad degree. And long story short, I get wooed back from an old coworker, and I tried it again, and I think I did it maybe 4 or 6 years, can't remember off the top of my head, and totally burn out again. And that's when I was like, I'm done. Like the system had even changed more to a degree. Like it was, in my opinion, like it was bad enough before. It swung a pendulum the whole way the other way. And I did know enough, I guess, at that point to like understand burnout and the idea of self-care. And I actually, when I first thought of coaching, I thought of coaching people in human services
Mhm.
in like burnout prevention and self-care,
Mhm.
but I just somehow got,
Well,
going in a
you
different
can
direction.
still do
Yep,
that. You can still evolve into that.
I
So
could.
the path that we take always switches and moves and
Yep.
switches back, and so you never
Yeah.
know where you start is not necessarily where you end up. So
No.
that's very interesting. I mean, I think that's an incredibly noble work, and it must be just so difficult. I don't
Yeah.
know that I could.
It's it
I
can be
don't.
brutal.
Yeah.
I mean, you do see the best. I felt like I saw the best and worst of
Worse.
humanity. I saw both sides. So you would hold on to the wonderful things as much as you could, but it's brutal. And as I start, this is what happened too. Once I started having children and seeing
Oh,
children the same age as my
that,
children,
that just must kill you. Yeah.
and you leave them somewhere to go home to your own, like, yeah, you just can't. You
Yeah.
can't figure that out in your head.
That's really heavy. Yeah, that's really heavy. So that's that. how did that affect your whole weight story? Do you think that was part of it?
Well,
Is
I had
that some,
healed. What's that?
I was like, is that some way that you compensated? Like, I can see me being like, okay, I'm gonna sit down and eat this pizza now because
Emotional
I
eating.
cannot, I cannot face what
I
just
know.
happened. Yeah.
Well, I had healed from the bulimia and right out of college and went through the profession fine. After I hit 40 and started, in the roller coaster of yo-yo dieting, I wasn't working.
Mm.
I wasn't doing so. No, it didn't have anything to do with it. Oddly, it really didn't. But
Mhm.
I could see how it could. I mean, anything,
Sure.
drinking,
Sure.
shopaholic, anything to compensate.
So your website is debbiethompsoncoaching.com.
Hmm.
So if anybody wants to get a hold of you, they can check you out there.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to tell our podcast listeners about,
Um,
any words of wisdom that you would like to espouse or whatever to younger women, or encouragement to older women, or encouragement to anyone to get
everyone.
off the couch, or what do
Yeah.
you say?
Well, I was gonna say, I guess the two things sort of centered around what we've been saying is number one, never stop growing. Don't think you have to ever stop growing. Life doesn't stop. There's no like finish line you crossed at 20 or 25 or something. Like, we still get up every morning, we still have a brain, and we can still learn and grow and pursue interests and passions and hobbies. I find that also in this age group, I think whether you have had any children or not, you can have a wonderful opportunity where you're in a phase that you sort of can return to some of the hobbies maybe you put away a long time ago when you were first starting your career or first starting parenting. So that's really fun for a lot of us. Yeah, and then as far as the health part of that too, it's the same goes with that. Don't think that you have to feel crappy or have no energy or start having achy bones and joints and headaches and horrible digestion. It doesn't have to happen. This is not automatic, especially at 40. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know yet what'll happen as we go on, but it's not automatic. There's so much you can do, and I think what science is learning too with a lot of it is it's sort of the cumulative effect of some of the things that we were doing when we were younger. They weren't healthy, and by 40 it's just like it's all coming,
Well,
coming to
think
roost.
of this, like the sun with baby oil.
Yes.
We baked out there. You could hear it sizzling. I'm like, it's like now you're like, why did I do that?
Yes,
Kind of a thing.
exactly.
What I think is amazing is that, isn't it like every cell in your body regenerates every 7 years? So it's like you
Yep.
get a new body every
Yep.
7 years. There's no reason, you can keep going with
No
it.
reason at
So,
all. Yep.
yeah.
You can feel better. I honestly, even when I was younger and I didn't have, weight or food issues anymore in my most of my 20s and 30s, I still just didn't eat healthy. So I didn't feel fabulous. And I remember people would talk about like, oh, this energy, I have so much energy. And I would be literally, I didn't understand what does that mean to have energy? Because I was exhausted all the time.
Yeah.
Well, I found out as I started, learning about health is that, the crappy food I was eating was putting me in brain fog all the time.
Yeah.
I was on a blood sugar roller coaster all the time, just crashing and eating more sugar, crashing and eating caffeine, crashing. So you don't have to feel that way.
Right.
I feel better, again, if I ran, in my late 40s and 50s for the first time, it's evidence you can still keep learning new things and feel even better.
I love seeing all those women who are like 100 and doing a marathon and stuff like that. And it's like,
Yes.
there is no reason that you can't do it. So
No, yeah, weightlifting in their
yeah.
80s.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you so much. I really
Yeah.
appreciate hearing your story. And, wow, we're both from like the same area and then moved to Germany for a while. And
Yeah, it's
that's kind
crazy.
of wacky.
Yep.
So I really appreciate you spending the time with us today. And I hope you'll keep in touch. Let us know how
Yes.
things are going. And
I
thank you
will.
so much.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Will you still feed me when I'm 60?